On this week's edition of Superhero Timelines, we're going to go into the Batcave. We're going to go through the entire history of the Batman film series, going all the way back into the beginning, and let's find out if it makes any sort of bat sense whatsoever.
Batman's live-action film history stretches back pretty far. There were two serials back in the 1940s, 1943's Batman and 1949's Batman and Robin. And then there was the film version of the camp 1960s series, which marks his first ever full-length theatrical release. Released at the ending of the show's first season, it featured a dynamic duo and that infamous shark attack scene. Did anyone ever mention that the shark seems to have a bladder control issue? That's a lot. So we meet the Joker, Catwoman, Penguin, and Riddler, and I'm not really going to cover this one since it's just an extension of the TV show, but I figured I'd talk about it a bit just so I can have a reason to shoot at the Batcave. So we're starting in 1989 with Tim Burton's Batman in a very different looking Gotham City, which is both futuristic and ancient at the same time. The Cape Crusader shows up early on, and then Billy D. Williams shows up as Harvey Dent, and you know he'll be back as Two-Face.
I mean, he will, right? Right?
Jack Nicholson shows up as Jack Napier, mob enforcer, and when we meet Vicky Vale, we see a newspaper. And although it doesn't have a date on it, the headline reads, "Alaman held a parade, gets citizenship," which refers to a real-life event with Mexican President Miguel Alaman in 1947, so we have a date here, maybe? Another newspaper close-up at least tells us that it's November 25th, but no official date. When Jack gets set up, we see his wanted poster, which freeze-frame shows his date of birth as 1937, so there goes 47 as the date, since he's clearly not 10. And down in the lower right, it looks like it says 1989, and a quick Google search brings up the prop poster to confirm it, so we're in 1989, the year of release. And Napier is 52 years old when he takes his chemical bath here, and then comes back with a whole new look, giving us the first on-screen Joker that doesn't have a painted-over mustache. When Bruce goes over his case history, it shows previous incidences in 1975, 78, 80, and 86, giving more credence to the 89 date. And then another newspaper and some confusion. It's suddenly November 7th. So we went back in time, and there's a headline about President Truman giving a speech at Princeton, which actually happened in 1947. But the copies all say that it's June 17th, so yeah. We then get our first ever flashback to Batman's origin story with his parents being killed in the alleyway, and their killer is none other than Jack, linking Batman with the Joker. Batman then drops a bomb that presumably blows these guys up. I mean, they're dead, right?
Batman just straight up murdered those guys. Murdered.
Then, facing off against the Joker, he has a chance to kill him and either chooses not to, or else Batman has the absolute worst aim ever. I'm going with bad aim because he just had no problem blowing up random thugs to pieces with a bomb, so why would he balk at shooting a known killer? They have a final face-off in a cathedral, ending with the Joker falling and dying and the creation of the Bat Signal, and ends with Batman brooding over the city. The massive success of Batman led to 1992's Batman Returns, again helmed by Burton. It begins with a flashback to Pee-wee and Simone dumping their deformed child into the sewer, where it's then raised by penguins. It then jumps ahead 33 years to Christmas time, and we meet Chris Walken in a crazy wig and Selena Kyle. Mayhem occurs, and Bruce is literally sitting in a chair in the dark brooding, and he has this built into the mansion to let him know when the bat signal is in the air, and those must be really hard to explain to guests. We then meet the Penguin, and then Walken's Shrek tries to kill Selena, which transforms her into Catwoman. The Penguin runs for mayor, and chaos occurs on both Cobblepot's and Catwoman's parts. And Batman gets punched by this guy, and he retaliates by blowing him up and killing him, which seems like a totally normal thing to do. When Bruce and Selena have dinner, we find out that he and Vicky broke up a while ago, so it's clear that some time has passed since the last one. Also, since it's Christmas and we have a different mayor, although no one refers to him as the new mayor, so he wasn't just elected in November, we can assume it's not the same year as the first. Throw in the fact that it seems like Batman has been a known presence in the city for a while now, and it's not a stretch to assume that the 3 years that have passed in the real world also passed here, so it's 92 as well. Pengu frames Batman, but he's foiled when Bruce Wayne scratches a CD, because you can do that to CDs apparently. And you have to wonder how fickle the people of Gotham are when this is the second movie in a row where the citizens side with the villain at one point. The Penguin reveals his plan to kill the firstborn sons of Gotham, which he was researching earlier, and most of them had birth dates of 50 and 51, although when we see them, they're little babies, and it's also Shrek's son, who's clearly in his 20s or 30s, so that Creates a bit of a date issue if the certificates were referring to the babies, because that would set the film in the early 50s, but we already know pretty conclusively that the first one took place in 89, so we have to take it that the certificates refer to the older sons, especially since there's modern references in this one, including the song Super Freak and talking about Ted Bundy. A final battle in the sewers leads to Selena trying to kill Shrek, but Batman tells her the killing is wrong and they should take him to the police.
Okay.
She kills him anyway, and the Penguin dies from his earlier injuries, while extremely oversized penguins carry him away, even though they don't seem to be touching him, so how does that work? Bruce broods the signal lights, and Catwoman lives to fight another day, even though we never see her again in this continuity. 3 years later, in 1995, everything changes with Batman Forever. Tim Burton and Michael Keaton are gone, replaced with Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer. We get a new Batmobile right away, and Gotham has been renovated with lots and lots of neon. And they meet Two-Face Harvey Dent, who looks a lot less like Billy D. Williams and a lot more like Tommy Lee Jones. They say it's the second anniversary of the day that he was first caught, which raises some points. So, first of all, with the new look of Gotham and Harvey and even Bruce Wayne, it's entirely possible that this is an entirely new continuity in which there's similarities with the previous. But if we're sticking with the same continuity, we at least know that it's several years since the first film, especially in terms of the renovation of the city. So let's roll with real time, and it's 95 here as well. We meet Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma, and his performance is just so subtle. And when Bruce goes to the circus, we see the Graysons get killed, so Batman takes in a young Richard, even though he's a grown-ass man, and he and Bruce are only a handful of years apart in age, which isn't weird at all. We get a second flashback to Bruce's parents dying, and it kind of doesn't look like Jack Napier is their killer anymore, and he's only credited as shooter in the credits, so that could be an argument towards this being a second continuity. Edward finally shows up in Riddler gear, and we get the grand entrance of Robin. Jim Carrey basically mugs at the camera for 2 hours, and Robin's costume gets upgraded, and Riddler and Two-Face discover Batman's secret identity. A final battle sees Two-Face falling to his death, and the Riddler a victim of his own brain-sucking machine. Bruce ends up with a new girlfriend, and we close on the duo running towards the camera. 2 years later, we get the notorious 1997 Batman and Robin. Can it really be as bad as everyone says? Batman looks less Kilmer and way more Clooney, and we meet Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, whose every single line is a cold pun. Like, every single line. Gotham is still Dayglow, and then we get to see our secondary villain with Bane, and then we add a third with Poison Ivy, played by Uma Thurman. And then we meet Alfred's niece, who shows up at the mansion, and when we meet Bruce's girlfriend, she says they've been together for more than a year. So with that, and some time for Bruce to break up with Nicole Kidman, let's say that we're 2 years since the last one, and it's 1997 here. Ivy kills Freeze's wife, Barbara figures out Bruce's secret and her own suit, which gives her own crotch, butt, and boob shots, although I guess female batsuits don't get nipples, and an actual plot device revolves around rubber lips. So, go figure. They defeat Ivy, which actually causes her to say curses. There's a ridiculous final ice battle with all new ice costumes, and Bane gets defeated while Batman beats Freeze. It's the first movie in the series to not kill any of the villains, with both Ivy and Freeze locked away in Arkham, and it ends with everyone running at the camera again, and it ends, and oh my god, I'm glad it ended. After that, everyone was pretty okay with not having any more Batman movies until 2005's Batman Begins. It was billed as a prequel to the Batman movies, but it's pretty clear early on that it's a total reboot. We start with Bruce Wayne meeting a man who claims to work for Ra's al Ghul, and flashback to meet new Alfred, and a second version of the Waynes getting killed. It's drastically different from the first film's version, so it's clearly a new continuity, and Bruce gets ninja training until he rebels against his trainers when told to kill a man, and returns to Gotham after a 7-year absence. We then meet Rachel, his childhood friend, new Commissioner Gordon, not yet Commissioner, and Lucius Fox, his weapons supplier, before seeing him go out on his first adventures, eventually busting out the first Batsuit. So, let's track the evolution of the Bat voice. In this one, he just had a hushed tone with a hint of raspiness. We also meet the Scarecrow, and then the Bat Grunt first appears right here, followed shortly by the new Batmobile and the revelation that Ra's al Ghul is still alive. He enacts his plan to use Scarecrow's fear gas all throughout the city, and Rachel defeats Crane himself with a well-placed taser, and a final battle on a monorail sees Ra's crash and explode. It ends by establishing the bat signal and introduces that the Joker exists. Again, lest you want to theorize that this may be a prequel to the originals, the public knowledge of Batman, the creation of the bat signal, and that the idea that Joker is already a thing instead of Jack Napier all contradict that, establishing a new continuity. Also, the date isn't quite established yet, but it's an interesting thing is the timing. Even though it seems to take place over a relatively short period of time, external materials seem to state that anywhere up to 3 years occur between Bruce arriving in Gotham and the ending of the film. In the context of the film itself, though, it doesn't really seem like it's that long of a period of time, so let's just say that the majority of the film takes place within the confines of 1 year. We revisit that continuity 3 years later with 2008's The Dark Knight. It kicks off with a heist and a very badass William Fichtner and the introduction of Heath Ledger's Joker. We get a quick return of the Scarecrow, and this security cam photo shows us a timestamp of 7/17/2008. So we have our official date for this one. That date is backed up in some DVD extras called Gotham Tonight, which reports on election 08. It seems like we've made the full transition to Bat Grunt now, and we meet new District Attorney Harvey Dent and his girlfriend Rachel, who looks quite different now, and holy crap, Eric Roberts. This is not the first time Eric's been in one of my timeline videos, but it's certainly the highest caliber. The Joker does a magic trick, and then says to wind the clock back 1 year, referring to a period before the Batman, which would place this film probably a year after the last at the most. So that places the first film most likely in 2007. The Batsuit gets an upgrade, and Bats can finally turn his neck. After several run-ins with the Joker, including this one bit that for some reason stuck out to me, and that's Batman randomly blowing up cars to clear his path.
How did he know that there wasn't anybody in there?
Gordon gets promoted to commissioner, and the Joker's plan comes to fruition, killing Rachel and horribly burning Harvey, and he looks, wow. He goes a bit over the edge and starts a killing. We get to the final battle, which for some reason includes tiny Zeus Lister, and a mano-a-mano brawl. And the Joker is stopped and arrested. Harvey goes even crazier, and Batman has to intervene, and Harvey is killed in the process. Batman takes credit for Harvey's crime to clear his name and goes into hiding. I only have one big problem with this one, and that's criminal underuse of Fichtner. Which then takes us to 2012's The Dark Knight Rises, which kicks off with Bane's crazy voice, and he kills Littlefinger. Then they let us know that it's been 8 years since the night Harvey died, so we're set in 2016 in this one. We quickly meet the Catwoman, and some computer readouts are curious because Bruce is researching warrants that both expire in 2011 and 2012, which would have been years ago. And it shows Selina's birthday as 1995, so she'd be 21 here. We also meet John Blake, who figures out that Bruce was Batman, and then Bane takes over Wall Street, prompting Batman out of hiding, and the entire police force stops chasing known armed robbers in order to catch him, which is weird. Bruce then loses his fortune in the stock market, the day after criminals took over and hacked Wall Street, and no one thinks that's weird, which is weird. Catwoman sells out Bruce, and then he gets his back broken and is thrown in a hole in the middle of nowhere. Bane then kills the mayor and takes over Gotham, and several months pass while Bruce's back heals until he's well enough to escape. But there's only a day left until a massive bomb blows up Gotham. Scarecrow shows up again for a cameo, and then Bruce teleports back to town but stops to get a haircut and a shave, and I guess to paint this flammable bat signal on the bridge. Bats and Bane finally duke it out, and it turns out that Bane's weak point is the large breathing apparatus in the middle of his face. Who knew? Good thing he's the Dark Knight detective. But not enough to figure out that his girlfriend is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia, and she's the real villain, which then lets Catwoman take out Bane very quickly. Talia gets taken out, and Batman flies the bomb out to sea, where it blows up and takes him with it, saving Gotham. The epilogue reveals John Blake's name is Robin, and he inherits the Batcave, while Alfred possibly sees Bruce in hiding, but it's left up to us if that's real as the Nolan trilogy closes. Everything starts again with 2016's Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, which I've already covered in my Superman timeline, so let's just stick to the important details. It kicks off with yet another version of the Waynes being shot, which makes the 4th time in 8 films. That's like every other movie that they get killed in. Bruce looks more afflicted than before and has taken to branding his prey. New Alfred is here, and as I pointed out previously, this file confirms our setting is 2015, which is interesting since that sets it 1 year prior to the events of The Dark Knight Rises, although that doesn't matter since we're clearly in a rebooted continuity. Again, this Batman doesn't seem to have a problem with killing people by ramming them with cars, and eventually dons an Iron Man suit to take on the Man of Steel. Their fight gets resolved. We've talked about it. And Batman kills more people to save Superman's mom. Eventually, he helps Supes and Wonder Woman take down Doomsday, mostly by being moral support, I guess, and ends the film prepping to bring together more heroes. And he apparently does, as 2017 brings us the Justice League, bringing back Batman along with Wonder Woman and Superman, as well as bringing in Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg to combat Steppenwolf, and if you're not a DC fan, no, they're not fighting a classic rock band. This one should be interesting to see how they blend the direction of Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, who stepped in to complete the film after Snyder stepped out due to personal tragedy. Also, judging from Affleck's comments, it'll be interesting to see if this is truly his last appearance as the Caped Crusader, and who will wear the cowl next.
So there you have it, 8 movies, about to be 9, several different continuities, timeline that's a little all over the place and sometimes makes sense, sometimes doesn't, but there you go. Also, just to note, this is only the live-action Batman movies. I wanted to include the Lego Batman movies mainly because it was awesome, but I'll include that with the animated Batman movies, which I'll cover in a future edition of this series as well. Well, that's about it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. Also, please check out my Patreon page as well if you want to donate a little bit of money towards me as well. And meanwhile, check in, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with another great video. Thanks a lot.